When it comes to basketball, people love to talk about who are some of the greatest players. In today's episode, I want to discuss who are the top power forwards. I'd like to know in the comment section below, who do you believe are the best power forwards? Now, obviously you're going to have names like Tim Duncan, 5-time champ, 3 times finals MVP, back-to-back regular season MVP. You're going to have someone like Kevin Garnett, who was a defensive player of the year, won multiple rebounding titles, is an NBA champion, All-Star Game MVP, regular season MVP. Then you're going to have guys like Karl Malone, 3rd all-time in scoring, went to the finals twice. Excellent mid-range game. You're going to have someone like Charles Barkley, who was really about 6'4", 6'5", but played like a big. Could give you 20 and 10. Excellent shooter, great defender. You don't get the nickname mound rebound, something like that. Just this indicates he was a rebounder and severely undersized. So those are going to be your top tier power forwards. But there are a lot of power forwards that often get forgotten about, and today I'm going to discuss some. Let me know in the comment section below, who are some of the best power forwards you think people forget about. And for this episode, I'm going to go a little bit back in time, more into the 2000 era. All right? So there's a couple guys that come into mind. Number one is actually going to be Rasheed Wallace. I think people forget how good Rasheed Wallace was. So in 2000, the Portland Trailblazers took the Lakers all the way to Game 7. And at one point, it looked like the Blazers were going to beat the Lakers. They just had a breakdown, and they were missing all their shots. Lakers came back and won. But Rasheed Wallace was a primary anchor. He was a great mid-range game shooter. He was one of the true bigs who could step outside and shoot the 3-ball. He could play defense. He could post you up. I think in today's NBA, if his job was just to rebound, shoot threes, post, he would probably average more points depending on the team he played for. But Rasheed Wallace, super underrated. 6'11"-ish, 7 feet. He would shoot the ball really high above his head. To block his shot was really hard. And like I said, he has a championship with the Pistons, and he was always in that range. He just played in an era where you had Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett and other big names. Another player who gets often forgotten about in the 2000s is Chris Webber. Before his injury, people forget Chris Webber was a guy who you'd expect to give you 20 and 10 points. In fact, if you look at his career averages, they're about 20 points and 10 rebounds a game for his career. In addition to that, Chris Webber has over 17,000 points in the NBA. You don't get 17,000 points by not being good. He had a beautiful mid-range game, and he would block shots. People forget that. He was also a really good shot blocker. And again, he's in an era where you've got guys like Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Rasheed Wallace, the era of those big power forwards. Chris Webber gets forgotten about. If it wasn't for the Lakers, the Sacramento Kings probably would have had a championship or two. Then we're going to go on to the list in the 2000s. More of the mid-2000s, or the 04-05 is actually Jermaine O'Neal. People forget that Jermaine O'Neal came out in the 96-97 draft class with other popular players like Ray Allen, Steve Nash. You can look up that draft class. And he was okay with Indiana, but he didn't really play much because, again, he's starting behind Rasheed Wallace. He goes to Indiana, and he really balloons. I'm going to read some stats just because I thought they were interesting. All right. So in 2001, he goes to Indiana. He averages about 13 points. The 2001-2002 season, he averages 19. In 02-03, he averages around 21. In 03-04, he averaged 20. And 04-05, he averaged 24 points. And in the 03-04 season, he was 3rd in MVP voting. 3rd. So again, he's putting up really, really good numbers. He had an excellent mid-range game. He was athletic. He could block shots. And that Indiana team was always one of the better teams in the East. There was one year where they probably could have won it all, but there was the malice at the Palace where a lot of the Pacers players were suspended. But he was definitely a top power forward. He was definitely a top 5 power forward in that early 2000 era. Like I said, you're going to have Duncan. You're going to have Garnett. You're going to have guys like Jermaine O'Neal, Rasheed Wallace. But Jermaine O'Neal was no slouch. He was really, really good. Those are my list of some players who just come into mind. I'd love to know in the comment section below who you think are power forwards that people often forget about. Another one I'll talk about since it's on my mind is actually Paul Gasol. I don't think people remember that before Gasol came to the Lakers, Kobe Bryant had requested a trade, and the Lakers were going to trade him to the Pistons, but he had waived that clause. He was actually, I saw some videos, he was actually at the time looking at homes in Chicago, so he was definitely looking of leaving LA. The Lakers pull off a move, they get Gasol, they go to the 08 championship, they lose to the Celtics, then in 09 and 010, they went back-to-back. They beat the Magic, and then they beat the Celtics again. And Gasol was averaging around 18 points and about 10 rebounds a game during those final series from the 09 and 010. So he was putting up great numbers. He was an excellent mid-range game shooter. He could rebound. He could even push the ball up the floor if you needed him to. The way he played was very complementary to how Kobe played. So Gasol was definitely a underrated power forward. Then people forget too about how good Blake Griffin was. Early in his career, he was just known for his super athleticism, crazy dunking ability. But when he went to the Pistons, Blake Griffin had an excellent mid-range game. He developed a pretty decent three-point shot. He could post. And people just forget about how good a prime Blake Griffin was. He was super athletic. He was big. People forget about him. Another power forward of the 2000s that just came into mind that people forget about how good he was actually Amari Stoudemire. Stoudemire was the 1B to Steve Nash's 1A on those Phoenix Suns team. Think of a Karl Malone, John Stockton type play style, but with Steve Nash and Stoudemire. There was many years they came really close. In 2010, people forget how much they battled the Lakers. Kobe shoots a ridiculous air ball, misses it, Ron Artest grabs the rebound, hits the layup, Lakers win, and then they ultimately go back in Phoenix and win. But had the Lakers lost that game, the Phoenix Suns might have went against the Boston Celtics in that 2010 NBA championship series. But Phoenix was really good, and Stoudemire was a driving force. He was super athletic when he was young. Later in his career, he developed an excellent mid-range game. He wasn't the best defender, but he was a really good mid-range game shooter in an era where the mid-range, I would say, it wasn't as valued as it is now. Most guys would shoot, that 10, 15-footer, but Stoudemire could pull you outside of the floor and knock down kind of those deeper jumpers, and he was super athletic off the dribble. You'd give him the ball, he'd blow by you, and he would dunk on you. He was super athletic, and people forget about just how good he was. He was a multiple-time All-Star, and like I said, those Phoenix teams always went deep in the playoffs. They just always happened to go against a Spurs team or a Lakers team that was just a better team. But had it not been for those teams, the Phoenix Suns might have been NBA champs. People forget how good those Phoenix Suns teams were. Like I said, again, there's so many players. I know I'm missing some. Some other honorable mentions are guys like Sean Marion, Antonio McDyess. I know there's a wide list of power forwards I'm forgetting. Kevin Love at one point, people forget about how good Kevin Love was. He played on a bad team, but there's a reason he got traded to Cleveland, and Cleveland gave up the number 1 pick in Andrew Wiggins at the time. Kevin Love was really, really good. He took a lesser role, obviously, with Cleveland, but he was the primary focus of that Minnesota team. They just never went far. But he was an excellent rebounder, and he was an excellent shooter. Again, I know I'm missing other players. Please let me know in the comment section below. Who are some power forwards that I'm forgetting about that we often as basketball people forget about? Thank you so much.